Welcome to the Plant-Based Podcast. Did you know that plants are truly amazing? Not only can you grow them and eat them, you can also wear them, drink them, nourish your skin with them, and so much more. Let Ellen and Michael inspire you to love plants as much as they do, as they chat with the movers and shakers in this wonderful plant-based world. So, let's dig in.
Brought to you with Lava Light. Whether you're a novice gardener, specialist grower, or houseplant enthusiast, Lava Light can help you to nourish and protect your plants all year round. The collection comprises 8 different horticultural growing media and pest control products, each continually offering the same natural benefits from thermal protection and moisture retention to soil conditioning and continued nutrient boosts. Derived from volcanic deposits, Lava Light is completely natural and sustainable. Look out for it online or in your local gardening stores. So, hey guys, we think you might find Sheryl one of the most intriguing guests we've had on the podcast yet. And I've actually just learned that she is a podcast virgin. So we are about to take that virginity today. Now, she has transitioned from the world of shareholder engagement and corporate governance advisory. It's okay, we don't know what they mean yet either, to a world of rare plants. And she looks upon plants as investment opportunities. She tracks the rise and fall of prices as supply affects demand, and she trades all around the world.
Now, the way that Sheryl has arrived on the houseplant scene is super fascinating. She has some very cool projects on the go, and we are so happy to welcome Sheryl Cuisia to our podcast today. Welcome.
Hey, hi guys. Thank you so much for having me. How exciting.
Oh, no worries. So where do we begin then? We really need to give listeners a bit of a potted kind of history of your career up to the moment that you entered the houseplant arena, because you need to explain to all of us, what exactly does shareholder engagement and corporate governance advisory mean? That was on your LinkedIn, by the way.
Oh, yeah. So look, guys, actually, it's quite an important matter. So my job in the city was to advise largely listed companies and hedge funds and private equity on their strategy for engaging with their shareholders. And basically, it was all around the empowerment of investors towards doing the right things. And basically, I've kind of paused from that. So I was in the industry for about 20 years. I started my career actually a long time ago. Maybe if we're going to start from the very beginning, I can start from the very beginning.
Definitely.
So the accent is Canadian. So I grew up in Canada. My family is Filipino Chinese. And then I traveled in my early 20s, just like a lot of people do in Europe. And then I pretty much fell in love with the UK. And so I've been living in London for nearly 20 years now. So then basically I was traveling, and prior to traveling, I studied performing arts and dance. And then I just fell into this industry I'm in of shareholder engagement and corporate governance advisory.
There's so many people who kind of go through these twists and turns and then just end up doing the job they're doing through falling into it somehow, not specifically having a career path. But what you landed in was amazing. Like what an incredible job to have.
Yeah, look, I think really in life, it's about exploring the opportunities that are presented to you and then making the most of that. And then what's really interesting is when you fall into something, so let's say, something like that turns into a 20-year career, inherently, you still remain the same person. So for me, I am very creative. I love theater. I love art. And basically, what I always do is apply fun and creativity in everything I do. And the cool thing is, with the plant hobby, I can do both. I can be creative, I can have fun, and it's also scientific.
Sure, that makes complete sense. And I have to just say, before we go on, the backdrop to where you're sitting looks amazing. Like beautiful art and loads of plants, just as we would imagine it would be from you, Sheryl, according to your Instagram.
Yeah, no, I really love art. So largely emerging artists. So I tend to go to, art fairs and see what new artists are there. And then take the pieces home. And I think art looks even better with plants. So I've got the best of both worlds.
Perfect. So we really all want to know, when did you start kind of showing an interest in houseplants? Had you been interested in them since you were young, or did it come along later on? And I guess even more than that, when did you start to recognize their investment potential, considering that's like your background as well?
Yeah, so I think growing up in the Philippines and being a slightly lonely child, I was always surrounded by plants, and I took comfort in plants. And then one of my aunts had this beautiful orchid garden, and she tended to those orchids so devotedly. And it was just so beautiful to see the connection between the human and the plants. And I think that always stayed with me. And then, as mentioned, moved to Canada, then had a career in the city, and basically working 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, in front of the computer or running from one meeting to another. You look for ways of creating rest and relaxation. And basically, plants help me. So where I started actually was maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And I got introduced to balcony gardening. So I ended up growing some vegetables. It's not easy, actually. Growing.
You're right, actually.
growing. It's not always easy growing certain vegetables, but some were. I managed to grow cucumbers, etc., tomatoes. So that was quite fun. And then I moved into indoor houseplants because I saw, wow, these are quite lovely and decorative. And then I think when I moved into this specific apartment, we then entered lockdown, and I went back into outdoor balcony gardening. And then the insanity of the rare plant craze hit me. And basically I started discovering the whole world of rare plants, which fascinates me in so many ways, and it continues to do so. Wow. Do you want me to tell you a bit about like the fascination of the rare plants? Because I mean, Michael and Ellen, you guys are, plant experts. But maybe I should ask you a quick question. What do you think of the rare plant world?
Oh, it's nice that we're getting asked questions on the podcast. Yeah. That's really cool. Do you want to go first, Ellen?
What do I think about the rare plant world? I think that it highlights how important plants are. I think it's fascinating to find out why and how they are rare now. I don't know how I feel about the production of rare plants as house plants, because I'm not really sure. I don't understand enough about it. Do you know what I mean? Like, is it good for us to have rare plants in our homes? Do you know what I mean? Or should they be growing outside where they should be, until they're no longer rare? Or I don't really understand the production side of it.
It would depend on the propagation. I guess that is part of the question, and maybe one we can bounce back to you, Sheryl, I guess.
But I will just say, I did go shopping recently in Charlotte, and they had an aisle of rare houseplants, and they looked amazing. And it was like, the variegated monstera and all of that everyone can't wait to get their hands on. And it was so expensive. All of them were so expensive. Is that what makes them rare, the cost, or is it that they are actually rare? Do you see what I mean? That's a question for you.
That's a really good question, because firstly, the term rare,
it's marketing, really, isn't it? To some degree,
really,
I'm sure.
Is. Yeah. So basically, what does rare actually mean? we need that definition. So for me, rare means only one person or a handful of people have that plant or that collectible item. But basically, the word rare is used in so many different ways. So I guess to the question that you were asking about how did I get into this whole rare houseplant investing thing? Well, again, it was the balcony gardening. Then it moved into indoors. And I realized, actually, this touches me because I am kind of tropical myself as a human being. And the concept of creating an environment in which these tropical plants could thrive in was really fascinating. And then I started to do more research, and actually going online, you don't really have a definitive source for information or reliable information around these rare plants. So then I started piecing things together, going on Facebook, going on Instagram. And so that was where I got my big introduction into rare plants. It was on social media. And I was just fascinated about, the beauty of these plants. But also I was quite shocked at the amount of money that people were spending on plants. So at the time that I went seriously into houseplants, the Monstera adansonii variegata was trading for around 800 to 1,000 pounds a leaf, right?
That's crazy.
And yes. So it literally is kind of like the tulip craze or the pineapple craze. So as much as we human beings develop, we still have this kind of need or want to put our value into something, in this case, rare plants, and to nurture it with the hope that, oh my God, it will retain its value. And it also gives you kind of a right into a club or like entitlement in a positive way. So it's kind of like belonging. And there was that sense, during COVID lockdown, where basically you saw these people creating a new industry effectively. And it was so fascinating to me. And then, my introduction was, the Monstera adansonii variegata, and I really, 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 really wanted it, and I couldn't get it. And then I finally got it. It was actually my partner who said, why are you going to spend 800 pounds on a leaf? Just spend 2,000 on a plant. And so basically now I tell her it's her fault that we have all these rare plants. But yeah.
That she has to look after sometimes as well, right?
Exactly. So there's about 200 plants in this apartment. And then I think there's about another 800 in our farmhouse in North Cambridgeshire. So yes, there are a lot of plants to take care of.
Can I actually ask a really practical question? Like, if somebody is getting into rare plants and buying stuff that is worth, the money we're talking about, do you have to add them to your home insurance? Like, what is the deal with that side of things?
Michael, that is entirely a valid question. That's the thing. There isn't a specific insurance to cover rare plants. I think you might be able to cover it as part of like contents or accident insurance, but basically that's another area to look into. Ultimately, for me, rare plants was a hobby, and basically that hobby has become a huge passion and is propelling me to actually formalize a little bit to be able to share my experience with others. And so the whole concept of rare plants and investing, my view is quite wide. So people invest in many things, right? So people invest in art. Some people invest in handbags. Some people invest in sports cards. And some people invest in stamps. And some people invest in wine. I invest in rare plants. So with those other collectible markets, those collectible industries I mentioned, there's a set of processes and governance that govern, I guess, the practices of trading within those industries. However, where we are with rare plants, it's pretty much the Wild West, and I keep using that term, the Wild West, in not such a negative way, but basically just to open our eyes up to what we actually need to do. So what we saw during COVID lockdown was incredible. So through and through, I'm an entrepreneur, you know that, and basically nice work if you can get it. So we saw quite a lot of, Gen Zs, millennials. It's a multi-generational thing, but particularly Gen Zs and millennials trading these plants for hundreds of pounds, even thousands of pounds, like the philodendron spiritus sancti for 5,000 pounds, and basically made a great living on just trading rare plants. So their side hustle, so to speak, earned them a large amount of money in a short period of time. That's amazing. But that kind of practice without the structure and the governance allows for only short-term gains. And what the rare plant market, industry, or community, however you want to call it, should aim for is longer-term gain and sustainability. So effectively, looking at plants as helping people and the planet prosper. Do you know what I mean? So I think there's a lot of considerations when it comes to rare plants and rare plant investing.
Now, people that are listening to the podcast, they might be thinking, well, is a rare plant a plant that's then been harvested from the wild? But of course, a lot of these plants are plants that are actually, they're bred in captivity. They're grown by micropropagation. We're not talking about kind of plants being poached from the wild here at all, are we? These are all plants that are grown in, I've been in a lot of these nurseries in Holland last week. So can you kind of explain to us a little bit more the kind of provenance of some of the supply chain with these rare plants?
I love how you use that very important word, provenance. So in terms of, again, where we were saying, Michael and Ellen, the word rare actually needs to be defined, right? So, so I think when we mention rare, a lot of people will think of plants found in the wild. But for practice, in terms of practicalities, rare means something that's found in the wild, but also something that has been created. So if we look at what happened during lockdown, basically there was a coveted plant, there were several coveted plants which emanated from the wild. So that was the Monstera obliqua Peru. So that was being traded for about a couple of £1,000 for a leaf cutting. And then the philodendron spiritus sancti, which was supposedly endangered in the wild. So basically, those are examples of plants that were classified as rare because they were rare in the wild. And then now what we're kind of seeing, guys, because there's the whole concept of micropropagation that you are talking about, which is actually pretty amazing because it's this kind of social justice movement of like individuals saying, we're going to propagate plants and we're going to spread them this way. So basically the whole micropropagation process has led to more people then owning these rare or unicorn plants. And so basically the industrious rare plant people, particularly in Asia, etc., are now looking for new means of generating the revenue that they have lost in the previously rare or unicorn plants. So what I'm finding in my research and discussions with other plant collectors is, again, particularly in Asia, we're seeing variants. So we're seeing a lot of the formerly rare plants being variegated. So basically, you're seeing the philodendron UPI, for example, now in the variegated version. So basically, it's kind of this. It's fashion, right? It's fashion. So last season's plant, or last year's plant, is now being worn by many people. So now we're looking into creating new fashion, and that's what we're seeing with these cultivars emanating from Asia.
So there's a real difference in the meaning of the word there, and it's important to understand that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I was thinking to myself before, if there is like a truly rare plant, like say for example, it was only a few years ago where these are outdoor plants, but there were some rare snowdrops, and like snowdrops sell for thousands, like hundreds, if not thousands of pounds. And because Walsingham Abbey up in North Norfolk had some rare snowdrops and they were labelled rare, and people went and stole them, and they actually got taken to court. Like it was illegal to do so. So like this word rare does definitely need to be defined, because like you were saying, is it a truly rare plant, or is it just marketing rare plant, or is it propagation rare? So there hasn't been so many propagated yet, but there will be. It's a misunderstood word, perhaps.
100%. It's arguably quite dangerous as well. From a marketing perspective. I mean, I just want to also caveat that the houseplant community is wide. It's very large. There's a lot of different segments. A lot of people go into houseplants or plants in general for well-being, like I did. And then basically the hobby, the collecting style, then morphs into something. So mine has very much morphed into my kind of personality. So I am a nerd, right? I love reading, I love researching, but I'm also an entrepreneur. So business fascinates me from the perspective of actually giving back to society and helping the environment. So a lot of the time, my perspective will have this business entrepreneurial element to it, which maybe some people will find like off-putting because they look specifically at plants as something that was created by nature and that gives them well-being. But I guess my point is that, I want the best value for people. And a lot of the times, when you have a collection of plants, whether it be 20, 100 to 1,000, there's value to those plants. You may have bought a plant for 10 pounds, 30 pounds, or 1,000 pounds. That's money. That's money. And basically the fact that you're nurturing it and you're growing it and it's part of a curated collection that belongs to you, that also adds value to the plant. So, I speak a lot to Sarah Gerard Jones, who you guys know, the plant rescuer. And I think what she's doing is absolutely brilliant. And one of the things we talked about is these heirloom plants, basically plants that have been in families for 50 years, 75 years. For me, those plants are actually rare, because how many Monstera deliciosas do you see that are 75 years old, or a Christmas cactus that is, 50? And so there's just, people have to look at their plants as lifelong investments. And I think for me, I'm just truly enthralled and fascinated by the idea of these plants being investment and us preserving its value.
So, I mean, let's face it, we get very sad if we lose a houseplant. So we that's a good way of looking at it, isn't it?
Hi, I'm Gardener Ben, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be participating in Season 10 of the Plant-Based Podcast. January in the garden can be a really strange month, with the weather not really settling. Sometimes it's mild and wet, and sometimes it's cold and frosty. But January is also a strange month online, with many of our favourite horticultural accounts completely disappearing during January and February. But for me, it's all about taking things slow and steady. The garden enters a beautifully quiet time of year. Everything slows down, and it's the perfect time to take a walk around the garden, bundled up with a cup of tea, to take stock of where you are and where you'd like to be for the coming season. During January, I'll be working on PMP, pruning, mulching and planning. Here in the North Lodge Cottage garden, there are hundreds and hundreds of roses that will need my attention during the month of January. And once I finish with the roses, it's on to the fruit trees and the fruit bushes. But the roses will take up a huge amount of my time. If you're unsure of how to prune your roses, I've filmed several online live tutorials, so do take a look at those. But very basically, you're looking at starting by removing the Ds, so which is the dead, the diseased and the dying. Once those are done, you can then take out the weak and crossing growth, before cutting your bush all the way down to between 8 and 12 inches to the floor, selecting a nice strong outward facing bud. By doing this, you encourage your rose to put on nice, strong, vigorous growth, which will bear lots of flowers during the summer. Choosing an outward-facing bud means that it will also grow out towards the outside of the plant, leaving a nice open centre to allow light and air into the middle of the plant. Once the roses are done, it's time to move on to the apples, pears and currants. And also clear the herbaceous borders. I like to leave all of my herbaceous perennials standing to allow the frost to kill them off. And once the birds have had their pick of the seeds, during the month of January I like to start cutting these things down and clearing them away. And that leads me on to M. M is for mulching. And now the garden is all clear, it's time to start really feeding and focusing on your soil health. 2022 was the hottest year on record, and the Met Office are already stating that 2023 will be even warmer and drier. The easiest way of feeding and protecting your garden is by using mulch. Whether it's homemade compost or organic compost you buy in bulk from a supplier, apply it to a depth of at least 4 inches across the soil. By regularly using mulch, you will not only add much needed organic matter and suppress weeds and seal in moisture, but the long-term effects means your soil will have the ability of holding up to 30% more moisture during a dry spell. It takes around 12 cubic metres to mulch the entire garden here at North Lodge. And that brings me on to the last and final P, the planning. If you're planning to grow vegetables, it's best not to mulch beds where you plan to grow things like cauliflowers, cabbages and broccoli. These particular vegetables prefer a slightly poorer soil, maybe mulched in the previous year but not that particular season. So the final P is for planning. I like to curl up in front of the fire with a seed catalogue on a really cold and wet day during January, and plan out what I plan to grow. Many gardeners get overly excited and start actually sowing vegetables and flower seeds in the month of January. But I like to take a little bit more time. Taking the seed catalogues, I tend to draw a planogram of my vegetable and cutting garden. I get out the same plan from last year and work out my crop rotations. This seems to take an awful amount of time. But also I like to remember which varieties did well and which varieties of fruit and vegetables that we grew that maybe we didn't get to use so much of or didn't enjoy. The very last task to be done in January is by far the most exciting. I always take delivery of my plant supports during the month of January. I buy hazel poles and pea sticks from a local supplier who cuts them to order and always delivers them in mid-January. I'll spend the latter part of the month building obelisks to support roses and weaving plant supports to keep up my herbaceous perennials. This is really cheap and very fun. Every single year I get to create something ever so slightly different. So if it's not something you've done before, give it a go. I look forward to speaking to you all again in the month of February. I hope that you have a great January in the garden, and I'll see you all again soon.
Now, I'd really love to know how can anyone kind of look at investing in plants? Like, what advice would you give for someone looking to recognize plants as a potential investment?
Yeah, so I think in the first instance, it's important to like the plant. Research is important. Arguably, as I said, there's not a definitive resource for all things rare houseplants. But I think if someone is looking into getting into rare plant investing, they have to like plants. They have to commit to doing the research and the analysis. They also have to be responsible. So personally responsible in that don't spend outside of your budget, because there is this thing within the community where people are looking to make a lot of money as soon as possible, as quickly as possible. There's a lot of danger in that as well, because especially within this economic situation. So basically stay within your budget. And then if you do tick all of those boxes and you decide to buy that investment plant, protect your investment. So often that would involve taking a cutting as soon as possible from that plant and then creating 2 mother plants. And then once both are, acclimated and healthy, then you can go ahead and sell one of the mother plants and get your investment back that way. But just bearing in mind that by doing that, you may be creating a bit of a downward spiral, because if I was the only one in the UK who has the variegated philodendron UPI, and then I take a cutting and I sell it to Ellen for £12,000, well, basically that value is no longer £12,000 possibly, because now there's 2 people in the UK who has that plant. And then I think, again, to that question about provenance, that point about provenance, it's important that you ask all the right questions. We need to understand that the plant has been sourced ethically. So if it's coming from the wild, making sure that it's not part of a biopiracy program. You need to find out where did the plant come from. If it was if it's tissue culture, ideally. Which lab, who was the grower that grew it. And then finally, because there is no insurance or no specific insurance for houseplants, you need to have a good relationship with the seller. Often it's this collector to collector arrangement. So work with the seller on phytosanitary certificates if you're importing. What would happen if the plant arrived damaged or dead? Will they replace it? So all of those things you need to consider.
Wow. Any hot tips right now? What is the plant that everyone is kind of talking about right now?
Oh my God, Michael, there's so many. I mean, it's like plant fashion, right? And it's
we just want an insider tip. That's all we need. Just one. I don't know. Look, there's a lot of people are fascinated by variegated plants. So looking at monsteras, for example, there's a lot of
fascination recently on the Monstera Thai constellation, and then they graduate to the Monstera creme brulee, which is about like 1,000 pounds more than the Monstera mint. So basically, that's like people are they like those plants. And I actually think that the Monstera deliciosa variegated family is a good investment because often they do take a while to grow. And basically as a result of that, they have a better chance of retaining their value, so to speak. And then you've got all of these other variegated plants like philodendron, as I mentioned to you, the philodendron UPI. I think I'm still the only one in the UK that has it.
I
Wow.
hope you haven't told anyone your address.
We were going to ask you about that, because how did you hunt that one down? Because I read on one of your Insta posts, like you saw it somewhere and it originally had a value of $100,000. Tell us a bit more about that UPI variety.
Yeah. Oh my God. So crazy. So basically the philodendron UPI is one of my favorite plants. And it's my partner's absolute favorite plant. And it was discovered by this amazing Dutch botanist called Joep Moonen. So then basically end of last year, a few of us rare plant collectors in the UK were chatting about, I can't wait until there's maybe one day there will be a variegated UPI. And then lo and behold, December, I saw that there was possibly this one. And then it got confirmed in January. Yeah. And I thought, oh my goodness. So then I found out who in Thailand actually grows it. And it's this amazing enterprising guy, plant grower called Kira. And I asked him how much it cost. And, bless him, because he's the only guy who has it in the world, $100,000. Basically, this is how, so at the moment, the way it's working, because again, the lack of proper governance, the lack of processes, like the lack of established processes that we see in other collecting industries, there is that element of kind of pulling a finger in the air and saying that I feel that this plant is worth £100,000 because I'm the only one in the world that has it. And possibly because I commissioned the lab to tissue culture this, and it all adds up. I mean, so I think there is a bit of methodology, guys, to be fair. So like the Asian rare plant industry is massively fascinating. So this is unconfirmed. This is just based on my research, but what we're finding is that these rare plant growers in Asia who basically became millionaires almost overnight during lockdown are always looking for ways of creating something new, creating new revenue. So they are commissioning tissue culture labs to create the variegated versions. And then they're grown and then they're supplied to the rest of the world. But basically, it is right that they calculate, okay, I have commissioned this variegated UPI. To get the variegated UPI via tissue culture, they actually have to painstakingly go through hundreds, if not thousands or even millions of these plantlets and basically land on the jackpot. And then you have to make sure that they acclimate, make sure that they grow, feed them, etc. And then finally, you've got that plant. And at that finally stage, they determine, okay, it's going to be £100,000 or $100,000. Actually, it was $100,000. So I even contemplated setting up a lab to just do the tissue culture myself at that price. So.
Sheryl, I have a question to ask you. If you were to have your hands on $100,000 plant, rare plant, for example, are you nervous about any of your rare plants dying on you, basically? Because if I pick up a plant from the plant store that's only $5, I still am worried about it dying. So if I was to get a plant that was worth hundreds of thousands or thousands or hundreds of pounds, I would be so nervous about killing it.
Yes. So the answer is yes, but just to clarify, I would never buy 100,000 plant. Maybe I'll eat my words later, but basically I have a cap, Ellen, so I wouldn't spend 100,000 pounds. But basically, just to continue on that UPI, and I'll come to your question, but on that UPI variegata, basically it was at that price and it remained that price. And then slowly went down. And basically what I then found was someone who was selling it in Thailand for around 15,000 pounds. And it was great. And then after asking a few more questions and research, I found out that variegated UPI I bought was not the variegated UPI from the original guy called Kidda.
What?
So he was still selling he was still asking a very high price for his variegated UPI. So ultimately, the way I looked at this is that his variegated UPI is the Hermes of plants. And then my variegated UPI, which I love, is like the Louis Vuitton of UPI. But basically, Ellen, to your point about mental health and stress around plants, unfortunately, it does come with a high level of stress because of the responsibility. So I've actually had a lot of ding-dongs with my partner about plants.
Well, she's actually behind you watering the plants at the moment.
No, actually, this is no, Michael. This is Danuta. This is Danuta, my cleaner, who's helping me with watering. Oh my goodness, maybe.
Everything's being watered. Perfect.
Yes. So Jill is in the farmhouse actually in Cambridgeshire, and this is Danuta helping me out.
Oh, Danuta, hi.
Hi.
So yes, it does give you a bit of stress because of that responsibility. And I think the tip I mentioned about when you first get the plant of splitting it into two so that you have the backup kind of helps with that. And then also maybe selling off that second mother plant. So then you feel more comforted that you've actually got your investment back. So this is the thing that people need to think about as well as, your mental health when you're deciding to invest in these
plants. Oh my gosh. So where do you think, obviously you watch the markets, you watch the prices, this and that, where do you think the plant market and the kind of trends are going next for indoor? But also, do you think this could spill over into outdoor? Because I don't know, were you aware that there are so many fluctuating prices with snowdrops? And there's people called galantophiles that collect snowdrops. And when I was at Thompson & Morgan, we actually sold one on eBay for, I think it was £700. And at the time, that was the most that a snowdrop had gone for. But I think those prices are now double easily when you look on eBay in February and March. But what do you think is next?
Yeah, so I think maybe to your second question first. Look, I'm not an outdoor gardening specialist, but I think that already exists. And then you've got these designer plants, right? So David Austin. So I think that the horticulturalist to which the plant is related adds value. So maybe there is, room for the Michael Perry snowdrop,
No.
or the Ellen Marie lily. But basically, so I think people are always, especially during tough economic times, people are always looking for alternative ways of storing their money. So maybe it will spill over to that. And then in terms of what is next for rare plant investing or just houseplant investing, the reality is it is tough times, right? So people came out of COVID, and that affected the prices of rare plants because people started losing interest and going back to normal. So that's had a major effect. And then I think what's also having a major effect, and we haven't seen the full extent of it yet, is the cost of living and energy crisis. So I think even just for the basic to mid-range houseplants, we might see an increase of plant prices at grocery stores and at garden centers, etc. And we might see less plants because if the Dutch are not able to afford to grow these plants, that means that our supply will be less. And then with regard to, specifically with the rare plants, it's going through a period of difficulty, I think. So again, people are finding this new normal post-COVID. They're looking for ways of actually systemizing, if that's a word, of valuing their plants. So I think it's a watch and see situation. I think people shouldn't give up on their rare houseplant collection. What I always say to people is that there's more value to come from your rare plant if you allow it to reach its full potential. So during the lockdown rare plant craze, people just kept chopping their plants, chopping. When you do that, you never get to appreciate the full beauty and potential of the plant. And that's what people should be doing at this stage.
Wow. This is such a good chat. I think this is a really, really interesting subject for listeners. Really is.
Great.
I'm just sitting here looking around at all my plants thinking, right, I'd like to propagate that and that and that, but also I really want to let that grow really big. And I'm literally looking at all of my plants in a new light now. Also, you have other things going on, don't you? Have you got any other projects going on that you'd love to tell us about? We know that you are an entrepreneur in residence at King's College, Cambridge as well. So tell us about that.
Yeah, no, you guys should come visit us at King's, actually. So I think there's a commonality between Michael and our head gardener there, Stephen Coghill.
Yeah, of course.
Who basically said that you went to his horticulture school. And that
I did.
Even back then, you were already a sparkling horticulturalist. So yes, I think what King's is doing is really amazing. Basically, they have set up the entrepreneurship lab to cultivate an entrepreneurial mindset amongst the students and even the fellows. And basically, because of my passion of rare plants, we have started a rare plant project there. So basically, beginning with introducing students to this whole concept of houseplant collecting, and then potentially even looking at rare plants as a possible route for NFT, NFT project creation. So that's really fascinating there. And then in terms of what else we're doing, I think as established, very passionate about rare plants in particular, very passionate about the idea of plants helping people and the planet prosper, and combining that with the whole entrepreneurship idea. Basically, a group of us are working on setting up an organization, which will then build a fund to help plant businesses, grow, as well as undertake research and development to put stronger processes and procedures for rare plant collecting.
Mm-hmm.
So there will be more to come on that. Sorry about the clanging in the background.
Maybe she's upset with me because I misidentified her.
Oh, that's okay, Michael.
That's so funny. It's okay as long as your plants are getting watered, all is well.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Where can our listeners find out more about you? Do you have a website or your social media tags, that kind of thing?
Oh, yes, for now. Instagram, Sheryl in Motion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then I'm also on LinkedIn. And then if you Google King's Entrepreneurship Lab, you'll find out information about me there, as well as, of course, on the Entrepreneurship Lab.
Perfect.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
It's been fascinating, absolutely fascinating. So we really appreciate you spending the time in there and talking to us and our listeners about investing in houseplants.
Great. Thank you so much, guys.
I'm Julia Parker from Parker's Patch, and I'm passionate about sowing and growing fruit and veg. I run Grow Your Own workshops from my home in Sussex and other venues in the southeast of England. And in this episode, I'm going to talk about what you can do in the veg patch in January. Now, don't be fooled into thinking this is a month of just planning and not getting your hands dirty. There is quite a lot to be done. Most of you probably know that winter is the perfect time to plant fruit trees while they are dormant. It's also a good time to prune some fruit bushes. Currants, red, black and white, can be pruned now, and so can gooseberries. Bear in mind, though, it's important to keep the centre of fruit bushes open to allow air circulation. This reduces pests and diseases from invading later in the season. I bet you didn't know, though, that you can start sowing seeds this month. If you are lucky enough to own a propagator, then it's a great idea to start sowing chilies now. They need a long time to grow before they reach maturity and produce ripe fruit before the end of the summer. Don't worry if you don't have a propagator, as a warm windowsill will work just as well. Bear in mind, though, that they need a constant warm temperature, so please keep the heating on. You can also sow broad beans now in an unheated greenhouse, a cold frame, a porch, or even a windowsill, but this time in an unheated room with lots of natural daylight. Broad beans are hardy annuals, which mean they can tolerate the cold and frost and even some snow. Sow them in compost in deep pots and lightly water. Do not let them dry out, but by the same token, don't overwater, as they could rot in these short daylight hours. They will germinate in only a couple of weeks. Water them sparingly, and in about a month they'll have probably 2 pairs of leaves. If the ground outside is not waterlogged or frozen, you can even plant them directly into the soil. Why so now, I hear you ask? Well, early sown broad beans will have a stronger, healthy root system, which means that if a late frost strikes, they will have a better chance of surviving. It's also another job done before full-on sowing season. My favourite varieties to sow are Meteor and Aquadulce. Peas are also hardy annuals. Sow them in much the same way as broad beans, or sow directly outside in rows. I actually prefer to sow pea seeds en masse in pots to eat as a pea shoot. They are easy to grow and an alternative to salad leaves. They are also expensive to buy, so a brilliant thing to grow. Sow any variety of pea seed in pots, lightly cover with compost, water sparingly, and a few weeks later, tasty green shoots will start poking through. When they're about 8 to 10 centimetres tall, I cut the stems, but always leaving a short stem and a pair of leaves behind. This will help the shoots to regrow. I harvest up to 3 times, then compost the lot and start all over again. You can actually do this all year round. If you have young children, pea shoots are a fun thing to grow as they are so fast growing. I actually call them healthy fast food. You can see different ways to sow and grow them in the Little Growers Cookbook, a children's growing and cooking book that I co-wrote last year. While on the subject of salad leaves, you can start to sow some early varieties under cover. Look for recommended winter varieties, which are hardier. I actually like growing the oak leaf type, both red and green. They are a loose leaf salad, making it easier to pick the smaller leaves. Rocket 2 can be started, and Little Gem is a good one. I sow and grow salads in my unheated greenhouse successfully in the winter. All you need is a little more patience. So you see, you don't have to wait for spring to get sowing. I love growing all year round, and I hope I've inspired you to do the same.
Brought to you with Lava Light. Derived from volcanic deposits, Lava Light can help you to nourish and protect your plants all year round. The collection comprises of 8 different horticultural growing media and pest control products. Look out for their colourful packs either online and in your local gardening stores.
Hello, cute stuff.
Hello.
Nice to see you, dear. Happy New. Oh, do I have to say it? Happy New Year.
You don't have to say it. Like we have this. We have the same thing every year. All of us. Should we still say Happy New Year or not?
I know. After the 3rd week of January, I don't think you need to. So.
No. Okay. Are we nearly in the 3rd week yet?
How are you? I haven't seen you forever.
I know it's been ages because we've both been doing our thing. We haven't even been able to gossip or even record the news together.
I know, but here we are. So how are you? Are you back now?
Yeah, I got home yesterday and all is well. I feel reset, ready to go.
What's it like being back at work?
I love it.
It's really tough, isn't it?
It's like you've just had all of this time off and half of that time where no one else is working either. So you do get like the complete rest over Christmas, don't you? And then literally the day you're back, it's bang into it straight away. And I feel like a bit weirdly jet lagged as well.
Yeah, I did as well on the weekend. But I think because we had that like extra week into January, it's almost made it even worse as well.
Exactly. Everyone, like people went back to work the week, you know, the 2nd or 3rd of January or whatever it was. And then we both strangely had that first week on holiday. So it's kind of like, I don't know, it's like a double whammy, isn't it, really? But tell me a bit about Iceland, because your photos looked awesome.
Oh, thank
really
you.
Cool.
Yeah, really cool. Well, obviously cool practically as well, like -10 and stuff like that. Yeah. But you obviously you dress for it. But the thing is, you can never get dressed quickly. That's the thing.
Not with so many layers, right?
I know. And also, like, I hate being too hot. So, like, if you've then got all those layers on indoors, you're kind of like, oh no, oh my God. So, yeah, but it's really cool and just amazing to explore, Ellen. I just want to explore every day of the year. Do you know what I mean? It's just so nice to see nature, see how different people live, different cultures, and even for me to be somewhere amazing, but even just driving around, you know, a local neighborhood in a different country or going in a supermarket, you know, even simple things like that are my favorite things, because you're just experiencing different stuff, which is just, I don't know, for me, that's what life's all about.
Oh, honestly, I couldn't agree more. On our last day when we were away,
learning.
We were in Utah. The last day we were there, I just said, I just want to do this every day. Like, I would be so happy if I could adventure every day. How can my job involve adventuring every day? But it's great. It just expands your awareness and understanding, you know, of all kinds of things.
Totally.
And
it's so funny though, because like you kind of got this vision that Iceland's quite small, but it's actually like, I think it's almost like twice the size of the UK or 3 times the size. And I spoke to my parents yesterday, and I'd sent them different pictures when I was away, and they were like, and my dad said, "Oh, did you drive around the island in a day?" It would take you like a week to drive around the island. But honestly, and so varied and so interesting. And like we both say, you could go on that same trip in the summer and see it completely differently, because the whole thing was covered in snow when we were there. It was just magical. And when we were on New Year, we were staying in a really remote hotel that was just beaut as well. Oh my gosh, honestly. But I think that's what's nice, the kind of remoteness of it, because you don't get that much in our day-to-day lives. And I know, you noticed the same when you were in Utah and wherever you've been, just being so alone, which is kind of quite sexy, isn't it? And the quiet as well is just so special.
When you are just constantly, with people, working, talking, engaging in whatever way, and you're busy in London or Charlotte, wherever we happen to be, all of us, there's this constant stream of information. And even if you're not out and about working, you're on your phone or on the laptop, there's just this constant noise, isn't there? So when you go somewhere where it's so remote and so quiet, and there's nothing really else to do apart from connect with the planet, because that is what you're doing. It's a beautiful time, for your brain and body and soul. And it's funny, your remoteness was in the snow, wasn't it, in Iceland? And my remoteness was on the plains and mountains in Utah. But the same experience was complete quiet. And we went places where there just wasn't a soul. There wasn't anyone else anywhere to see for miles and miles and miles. And, you just feel like in that moment in time, you are the only person walking on the planet. Do you know what I mean? It's just glorious, isn't it?
But then at those moments, I don't know, I'm always like, we're driving quite in the south, and there's all this kind of volcanic rock just sitting around and I don't know, you're just thinking these rocks, they almost look like they've been designed in this way, that they're all there, but they're obviously there through some natural explosion in the past or process, and it's just and it just makes you think about all that stuff, and it's just
it's epic. That's true nature immersion. Couldn't recommend it enough. But how about your plants when you got home? Did your plants survive?
Oh yeah, this time of year it's easy because nothing really needs water anyway, so it's super fine. How the plants were in Iceland though, most of them are completely hidden. Can you imagine having a garden that you then didn't see for 4 months of the year, and your plants are just below that garden? It's really strange.
And we complain that the garden is not so exciting over winter, but at least you can see stuff.
I know. Because there's not the landscape. There's not generally many trees in the landscape either, apart from where they're kind of man-made forests, etc. So it's quite. When you've got this kind of wintry landscape, it really is. You drive around and you kind of look around the mountains, this and that, and you could easily be in the Arctic or something,
Yeah, totally.
It's just really special to go this time of year, actually. I'm really glad that we did. And and I'm really glad that we didn't almost get scared off, because you can drive in this as long as you've got snow tires and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, absolutely.
But you were going through from Vegas to Death Valley, right? And then you obviously went up from there. What was your route?
We done 2 days in Vegas, and then we drove across to California just to Death Valley, because it's so close to Vegas anyway, so you might as well.
Yeah.
And then we turned back.
And it's so cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. And then we turned back and went up to Utah. And whilst we were in Utah, kind of just on the corner of Utah, so we drove around that corner of Arizona, Nevada, and then up to Utah. And we just went to lots of different parks, like Snow Canyon is in a town called St. George in Utah, which we were just stopping over one night.
Yeah.
We weren't really planning on doing anything. And I just said, we've got a few hours in the morning. Let's go and check out this park. And it was a state park, so it's not a national park. It was epic. It was probably one of the best state parks I've ever been to. With these prehistoric petrified sand dunes that are 180 million years old. What the F? Do you know what I mean? You're standing on these things going, this is 180 million years old, and it just puts so much into perspective. We're just like these little bits of dust, aren't we? Do you know what I mean? And and then we went up to Zion. Well, basically we were going to Zion, so we were adventuring around Zion National Park and stargazing and sunset and sunrise and up mountains and through waterfalls and along rivers. It was just absolutely
You stayed in Zion
beautiful.
as well?
Yeah, we stayed right in Zion. Yeah, so cool. Absolutely. Just marvellous, And this time of year, of course, you're out of season. So you can't usually drive through Zion. If you are, I think it's something like March to November, you can't take your car into Zion. You have to get a shuttle bus. And the shuttle drops you off at different points along the way so you can do the walks. Because when you go out of season, you get so much space to yourself and you get the privilege of driving through it and stuff. So we were able to
I think when I've been there before, it must have been out of season, because I remember driving through, all of the smaller roads as well. Yeah,
you can drive through it. I'm pretty sure it's November to March. But anyway, so like we just done loads of walks. There's barely anyone there. You know, you're up a mountain with this like spectacular view that was almost Costa Rican looking. And you're like, there was I couldn't see anyone. And it's just marvellous, you know, you feel like you have it all to yourself. So it's been lovely time. And now it's back to work with a bang.
I know, it takes a lot to ease back in. I'm kind of like, I really need to catch up on my emails and get my to-do list sorted. And I'm just like, oh my God. And also January, why does God make January so wet as well? Like, I don't know how the weather is there, but here it's just like really damp and rainy. It's like, oh, just give us a break, you know?
He's testing you, clearly. It's sunny here. It's cold, but sunny. And the blue sky does make a difference. I realise how lucky I am. Yeah, I get it.
When it's just crisp.
Yeah, which is really nice.
But I'm just here next week, and then I'm in Germany for a week for a trade event. And then after that, it's kind of really February. So it kind of, I think by having that extra week into January, it kind of means you are closer to Feb. And of course, when you get to February, this is when snowdrops start. And I feel like that is the point of the year when it just sort of snowballs from there. And the snowdrops are out. And then soon after that, you'll see some iris, some crocus. And always spring is my favourite month anyway. And we haven't got long until we get there. So, you know?
No, you just got to keep on going. And every year we go through the same motions. And every year we get spring. And every year it all turns out just fine. And when I came...
sorry, go on, darling.
When I came back, I did have quite a few dead plants, I've got to just say. Not indoors, but outdoors.
What was dying? Because it was getting colder and colder, you mean? Or?
Yeah, it was like minus 12, minus 13. There was a wind chill of minus 17. Yeah. And even some of the plants that you would expect to survive that temperature with sustained low temperatures like that, there's just no way.
Yeah.
And I didn't fleece them up. Like even like the heucheras have gone. Some of some of the hellebores are struggling. Most of the grasses have died. When things that I didn't cover that obviously wouldn't sustain that, like the succulents, the mangave, that kind of thing. They're just all squished.
Mine are just they just melted on the spot.
Exactly, literally.
Like this shadow of their former self.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like that. But I see that as an opportunity. You know, like spring will come.
Totally. But I wonder, I wonder how people garden in Iceland. Actually, I wonder if they just start with fresh plants every year, the whole garden.
Nothing is perennial in Iceland.
But then again, on the other hand, the snow probably does keep the plants warm as well to a degree. But I have to say, in my garden at home, I got caught out by that really cold snap that we had in UK, and like my mangaves were still outside and kind of like different aeoniums and stuff, and they're just all melted into a shadow of their former selves. And I feel so silly, but it was a surprise. Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is, and I feel really
I think a lot of people
also it's sort of funny. They just sort of melted, like literally. You know when you see the melted emoji on whatever, it like literally melted like the emoji.
Oh god. So that's been cool. But now, new year, a new start, all of that jazz.
Is this our first gossip together for this? For this new series?
Yeah.
Because we're on a new series. Wow. We're on series 10. Like, when we started it, did you ever think that we would get to series 10?
No, because I had plans to replace you around series 5.
I was going to say. I didn't think we'd still be friends.
You were going to be Jackie, like in Bananarama. Yeah, just coming in for an album or two, and then like kick you out because you're then too late for meetings and stuff.
Oh yeah, I'm never late for meetings. I'll have you know. So this week's episode, talking about plants and killing them, was with Sheryl. So rare houseplants and collecting houseplants. I just suddenly thought,
really interesting.
Like, would you ever go on holiday? Like, if you had,
that would really.
Because you and I are a bit
recently.
like.
I wonder what she did. Yeah.
You must have someone who knows about plants looking after them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, yeah. Like Ellen, this is why I never have anything really expensive, because I'm kind of. I don't want to be a slave to a rare plant at home. You know.
No, it's true though, isn't it?
I don't want to be held hostage by Anturium, you know?
I wouldn't be held hostage to one of them ever. But, you know, seriously, like if you'd spent 1,000 or more on a plant, you would be so concerned about it dying at any point of the year. But
and even someone else looking after it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Like we're both kind of like, we don't want to waste plants, obviously. Like you want them all to survive, but also we've got to live life. So you have to accept that sometimes you will lose, you know, a plant or two. But you like if you've just spent all that money and you love it and and it's so rare, and like that would be the worst pressure.
But for me right now, I'm kind of like more keen to invest the money in seeing things in different places and learning about plants in different areas. And yeah, I think the time will come when I might want to create that exotic vibe at home. But yeah, it's just and sometimes I feel really fortunate to see these things, but then I don't spend the money on other stuff. You know, like Ellen, I don't spend money on expensive clothes. I just wear stupid ASOS trash. I
was going to say, you get the clothes and then send them back. That's what happens.
That's exactly what you do on a photo shoot, you cheeky baby.
I know, but you're trying to say that you don't spend any money on clothes. It's because you really don't.
but very minimal. And there's a lot of things that I could be bougie with that I'm not. So, yeah.
What are you bougie with?
I think just going places, experiences and stuff like that. I really think that is, because when I've been doing that recently, I've been thinking like, oh, this is really, but that's just what I like to focus on. And really. Yeah, well, I guess, new experiences, eating different things, kind of all stuff around there, really. So
people often say to me, oh, how do you like live that life, you know, going away back and forward, doing what you do? And I have two things. One is I don't spend much on anything else, and two, I don't have kids.
Yeah.
You know,
true.
That.
But it is just about funneling your money in a different direction and focusing it in a different way. So that's the bottom line, really, Melon.
It really is. It totally is. That's very exciting start to the new year.
Oh, I know, but I really, like, after I get off this call, I've got to open my emails and get stuck in, because I'm kind of like that. I feel like it's the night before going back to school on a Monday.
I got Sunday night syndrome.
I felt like that for like 5 days. But you know how it is. The minute you start doing it, you're in it. Do you know what I mean?
Oh,
you feel good about it. So I just need to get to that point.
You thrive off your work, you know, when you're doing it, you know. So I think you just got to start doing it. Like the second we got back, I had to start. I had some stuff that I had to reply to urgently, and then last night I was up to about midnight doing 2 pieces of copy that were due.
Really?
So I went straight into it. I didn't even, but now I feel really keen. Do you know what I mean? I'm kind of like, let's get into it again. So it's like taking that first step just to embrace it. We're lucky that we have the work, you know. Oh,
true. Well, but Ellen, I can assure you that I genetically can't work in the evening. Do you know why?
No.
I've had my epigenetics test results back from Biosynergy.
Have you? Oh, tell us about them.
Oh my God, it is such an amazing service, I have to tell you. Like the amount of info you get back. And I'll show you at some point, but just to run through, like I don't know, it's kind of, you've probably got about, 50 different results, all in different categories. So kind of like diet, kind of, I don't know, activeness, I can't remember what they all are, but and just a few kind of highlights. I mean, like part of the results, like you just have to send your spit. That's all they kind of draw it from. All about your genetics and how you can like treat your body in order to get the best out of it. Because there could be certain things you do or certain supplements you take that it doesn't even benefit you. And it kind of gave the results for some of those. And it said like things that I had a low risk of deficiency in and ones that I had a high risk of deficiency in. So ones that you might then need to focus on and kind of take those supplements, and other ones that wouldn't have an effect. Loads of info on like what to do and different foods to eat and this and that. And there was just a lot of different random things as well. Like in terms of exercise, I think my fast twitch muscle fibers are good or something.
Your fast twitch?
So when I do exercise, for me to do more than 40 minutes of exercise is the best to get the results. Like anything less is not really going to like have a benefit overall for some reason. What else? Oh, I really want to show you because I can't remember this stuff now. Genetically also, I'm not a night owl, so I'm better early in the day. And this is kind of genetically proven from the type of genetics I have. And all different stuff about all the different vitamins, minerals, kind of, you know, to do with heart risk and kind of like how you would, process cholesterol and kind of all of this stuff is really, really interesting stuff. And it really gives you something to then zoom in on and focus, because, you know, we could merrily go along doing things that we think are good for our health, but they're kind of not really benefiting us. We could do something different. So it's really tailored to you and your genetics.
That's really cool.
And the pack is 130 pounds, I think it is. And this company, Biosynergy, I'd really highly recommend them. It's really cool.
That's really, really cool. That might be the next thing I give it a try this year at some point, maybe.
Well, I also recently did a microbiome test. I'm just sent that off for the results now.
No.
That's a really odd test to take. That is not as easy as spitting in a tube, Ella Mary, I can tell you.
Why? What do you have to do?
Do you want to know? So, it's a really great kit. I'm going to tell you regardless, because everyone will want to know.
I don't know. I want to know.
There's like there's various things in the kit. So you have a collecting tube, you have a bag, you have a spatula. You also have an instruction leaflet that has 2 sticky pads on the end. And what you do is you use this kind of strip of paper and you put it across your toilet bowl. Yeah. And it has a little dip in the middle. Yeah. And you then need to go to the toilet as usual. And your toilet lands on this strip of paper. Yeah. This big strip of paper. It's quite a wide strip of paper. Honestly, Ellen, it was so hard, and I was making all these weird noises, and my partner was like, "Are you okay in there?" And I was just kind of like, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god!" and so then your I don't know the right phrase, but your number 2 is basically then on this big wide piece of paper, hovering above the water, yeah. And you then need to take the spatula and take a piece of it and put it into the tube, yeah. And then you need to put the lid back on the tube and then shake it so it's in this solution. And it's, oh my God, it's just, oh my God. Yeah. And then this piece of paper that you've then obviously shat on, it's then, what do you call it, biodegradable? It then dissolves. But it just, it's so unceremonious because it then I'd done my sample and then this kind of piece of paper just dropped into the toilet and then just sank away with my number 2 on it.
As it should.
So bizarre. And oh my God. And then putting it in the bag and into the post. It's just and I felt really guilty for the guy on the post counter, him knowing that he's handling my poop.
How did he know? How would he know?
Because on the outside it says microbiome test. It's there's nothing discreet about it.
But he might not know what that is or what is in it. Do you know what I mean?
But he also might.
Yeah. Ew. So how long will it take for you to get those results back?
I don't know. Hopefully a couple of weeks. So,
How exciting. So what has made you want to do all of this?
don't know, to be honest.
Just want to learn.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting a
And I think
spatula of poo.
Yeah, I think it's really good to have that awareness, really, and especially with the epigenetics one, because, like I say, you could be merrily taking this vitamin, that vitamin, and actually you should be focusing somewhere else, or maybe you're not even taking the right amount. And I will send you a copy of mine because I can't remember all the stuff, but one deficiency, was it B12? I don't know, but basically then the advice is to have like 12 sheets of lava bread at least every couple of days, nourish. So it's real hands-on advice as well. It's very good. Very good.
That's really cool. Well, that sounds like you're going to be well on track for 2023. Top health, knowing how long to exercise for, what foods to eat. Does it tell you what plants to grow?
But it's a relief being able to poop normally again.
I should think it is, but I don't want to talk about it anymore. Make me feel slightly queasy.
Well, I have to say, it's just as hard to spit in a tube, Ellen Mary. even with a funnel entrance.
It is like you have to produce quite a lot of it, don't you? And it's you don't realise, it's quite hard to get that amount of spit.
I didn't realise how spit deficient I was as a person.
Spit deficient you are. Oh, Michael, what stuff we talk about.
Oh, how nice to see you. When will I see you in real life so I can touch your face and stuff?
Well, I have to come to the UK in February for a few weeks because...
I know that already, don't I?
Yeah, I have a visa situation occurring.
Oh.
I need to go to
illegal?
the embassy. No, I'm definitely not illegal. But I can't drive because my driver's license has run out. So you have to extend your visa. So I have a 7-year visa, but after 3 years you extend it. And because the processing time at the visa office here is 8 months, the visa extension went in, but in the meantime my driver's license ran out of date. It's expired, and I'm perfectly legal in the country, but I just can't renew my driver's license. But if I go to the US Embassy in London, then they'll renew it there and then. So
how funny.
I know. Otherwise, I have to wait 8 months, which is really weird. So yeah, I'm going to come back for a couple of weeks and do that and just sort out the allotment because someone sent me some photographs of it and it's amazing, all things considered. I haven't been there since October, but it does need some weeding, and I don't want to come back at the end
time
of March.
Year, isn't it?
I know, but there's a lot to do and I'm not here all year, so it would be good to get down there and do a bit of weeding ready for sowing and growing in March, at the end of March.
That's probably the longest the furthest anyone's ever travelled to weed the garden.
Yeah. I only come home to weed the garden, and also it's obviously lovely to come home and see family and friends for a bit, but then I'll be back in March for most of the summer.
You must tell me the date, Ellen. I'd love to fit you in.
Well, I try not to tell you and then I get away with not seeing you. Yeah, I will do. And also I think I'll be there for the Garden Press event as well this year. I didn't go last year, so yeah. And then there was COVID. In fact, the last time I was at the Garden Press event, I have vivid memories of not knowing anything about this virus thing going on yet. Have no idea. And then somebody went to elbow bump me. And I was like, what does that mean? And then someone else said, oh, should we elbow bump? And I was like, what?
So
why
funny,
would we be? I don't what does this mean? And then that's obviously when everything started kicking off, and I had no idea. That was when I realised there was something going on.
Oh, I flip.
All those years ago.
Oh, funny.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to going to it and not having to elbow bump people.
Okay, well, enjoy.
No, thanks. Thank you. Is that it?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, well, nice to see you. Nice, well done.
Enjoy the episode. Enjoy the interview. Yeah. Enjoy our gorgeous little contributors. Ding dong.
Ding dong.
The music for the Plant-Based podcast is part of the song Grow by Mikey James, and our editor is Gareth Patch of Semi Echo.